Jaguars 21, Jags 24, Houston Texans 21. Fun little back and forth game here. Jags move to 8-3. Texans fall to 6-5. There was a lot happening in this game. When watching it, we knew first place was on the line in the AFC South. That the Texans had a chance to sweep the Jags and be tied for first place. It did feel like, hey man, this is going to be a nice battle between Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud going forward. Lawrence with several big-time throws. He finished with 364 passing yards. Just continued to flip the field, man, throwing the ball down the field. One of his best throws was dropped by Calvin Ridley in the end zone, but it was a high-impact game from Lawrence, throwing the ball down the field. And then similar, C.J. Stroud on the other side, against a tough Jaguars defense, he still threw for 304 and a couple scores, ran for another one. I've got some thoughts on Stroud and the way he played, but what were your takeaways coming out of this one?
Yeah, I think both quarterbacks played spectacularly. I think Tank Dell looked absolutely amazing as well. I mean, he isn't just looking like a great receiver, a great rookie receiver. He might be the best rookie receiver in that class. I mean, nobody else is playing at the kind of level where you're like, Tank Dell is definitively not the best wide receiver from this draft class. Like, in a class where the entire narrative from start to finish was there's no Jamar Chase in this draft class, is Jordan Addison clearly better than Tank Dell? Arguably his two best plays in this game didn't count. Like, he made a bunch of spectacular plays in this game. There's one absurd catch where he contorts his body backwards, cradles it, and then gets his legs taken out in the air and sort of fires back over. But he went and mossed somebody deep down the field on a pass that got negated by an illegal shift penalty. He had a spectacular sideline catch that was like an inch away from being a toe tap reception. Like, his toe comes up just like a frame before the ball settles in his hand.
Incomplete.
Yes, but spectacular sideline play by him. I mean, the touchdown that they scored was another one where him and Stroud are exactly on the same page. He finds a space in the zone. He settles there. He's waiting. Stroud finds him, gets the ball to him. He rides the contact that comes in immediately. I mean, Tank Dell looks spectacular. C.J. Stroud looks like he's just settled into being Georgia's C.J. Stroud in perpetuity.
That's what I wanted to highlight. I tweeted it yesterday, and it felt like Stroud was not playing from the pocket very often. So I did look it up. He had 19 of his 47 dropbacks were outside the pocket. Now that includes that could be design rollouts, but it's anything that's a design rollout or a scramble drill, basically. That's so 40% of his dropbacks were outside the pocket or some level of not in the pocket, basically. 22% only is where he's at for the season. So almost double of his dropbacks were outside of structure, we'll say, which didn't feel right. Now, he played well. I mean, I thought Stroud played well outside the pocket as well, and he left the pocket usually for good reason.
Yeah.
When one of his scramble drill touchdowns was a 3-man rush in the red zone. One of my favorite things that quarterbacks do is when they see a 3-man rush in the tight red zone is don't throw the ball, is when they take their time, because you know it's a 3-man rush. You know that the windows are going to be tight, and you don't throw a pass in rhythm against a drop 8 coverage in the tight red zone. And Stroud did that. And instead what he did is he said, okay, I know I have a 3-man rush. All I'm going to do, if I just avoid these guys, at some point the coverage is going to break down, and it did. I loved that play. There were other plays where he did leave slightly compressed pockets. There were definitely some plays where there was some quick pressure from the interior. Roy Robertson Harris had some big pressures. Josh Allen had some key pressures in this game. I'm wondering. My little concern here is that Stroud is actually getting too comfortable playing outside of structure, where normally I would say, hey, Stroud's great in rhythm and everything. Now, if we add some of that special magic, that'll complete his game. My concern would be that he plays a little bit too much like that. Like I said, it wasn't bad. He played well. He played fine. But his secret sauce, man, is sitting in the pocket, going through his progressions. And I thought there was a couple plays in this. Normally he would get to his second progression, just move his feet, make a throw, and instead he's getting a little antsy getting out of there. And I think that came back to bite a little bit down the stretch. He took a couple big sacks, and that would just be something I'm keeping an eye on with Stroud, who I still think is fantastic, playing great, adding this element to his game. But like any quarterback that creates outside the pocket, Rodgers through the years, Mahomes through the years, whoever it is, any player that does that a lot, we would always say, you find the time to rein it back in and play within structure. I don't want Stroud to get too comfortable, I don't think, playing outside the pocket. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to have a Mahomesian type play style as a general default setting. I felt like this game was one where, okay, not all the plays were forced, but most of the reason he left the pocket was because Jacksonville's pass rush was doing a really good job, was putting him under pressure, was forcing these plays. And then sometimes when you're under pressure that amount in a game, there are going to be plays where you feel it coming and it's not really there, and you start contributing to it, right? That's why pressure has this kind of compounding effect where the more you get, the more of an impact it makes, because the quarterback starts to feel it even when you're not actually getting pressure. Like it's an exponential effect almost. So I feel like he was under pressure a pretty decent amount in this game. He made a lot of good plays under pressure, and then that contributed to him maybe leaving some pockets that he wouldn't have ordinarily left. But generally, I think that's a forced change in his style as opposed to him just sort of lapsing into those kinds of habits or that play style. So I wouldn't be hugely concerned about it unless it starts to become a bigger part of his game, in which case I agree it's not really his – I'm not even going to say it's not a skill set because, I mean, he's doing really well doing that at the moment. But it's probably not where you want him living most of the time. But, I mean, I thought he played – again, really good in this game. Him, not only is he playing fantastically, the Tank Dell connection with CJ Stroud is looking ridiculously good. And that, I think that's a huge part of it. It doesn't necessarily mean, a young, talented quarterback he doesn't even need necessarily a true number one superstar wide receiver, but he needs a guy that he has a connection with and that he's comfortable throwing the ball to. And right now, that's Tank Dell. I mean, Nico Collins may be their number one target. He may be their number one receiver. But when things go to hell, Tank Dell seems to be the guy that's on the same page as Stroud, and that's where the ball's going.
Yeah, the one you were mentioning, I think it would have been about a 62-yarder that got negated.
Yeah.
Where Stroud, outside the pocket, hit Tank Dell down
58.
the field. 58? Mm-hmm. It got negated by an illegal shift. So, that's unfortunate for Houston there. On the other side, as I mentioned, this was, every now and again, Trevor Lawrence has one of these games that looks like the games I envisioned Trevor Lawrence having, right? This was, he hit Christian Kirk for a 57-yarder just before the half to get the ball to the 1-yard line to give the Jags a scoring opportunity that shouldn't have existed. Now, that was a fascinating play, too, because they decided to use that one play instead of kicking the field goal.
Yeah.
They went for it. And they went to their QB sneak formation, which I love. But this is one of those where they pitched it out to Travis Etienne, and it was Desmond King who stuck him at the goal line. Desmond King's only snap of football.
Who don't even re-sign, recently.
Yeah. This was his only snap of the game. Because I'm watching this play, I don't even know if they mentioned who it was or whatever. I went back and watched him, that was Desmond King. Oh, that was his only snap.
Doesn't it feel
just stuffs ETN just before the half? That was a huge game where the Jags could have stolen a touchdown there.
Yeah, huge. I have no problem with that kind of ballsy, go for it attitude, right? Instead of kicking, instead of doing whatever, we're gonna go. We got one play, we score or nothing, all or nothing, touchdown or go to halftime. Let's take the shot. I have no problem with being that kind of ballsy and going for it. It feels like we're in this weird – I haven't even checked the numbers to see if this is accurate or not. But, the Eagles, at the same time as the Eagles have become virtually unstoppable at 3rd and 4th and short, the rest of the league seems to be getting worse at it. And everybody is having these nightmare struggles with these simple plays, half of which seem to be just overthinking the damn thing. And I don't know if this is a reaction to other teams now getting better at defending 3rd and 4th and short because the Eagles are forcing them to. Even the Eagles will tell you teams are defending that push play way better than they were when they started doing it. Now they're still succeeding at it because they're executing better than the people are defending it, and theoretically it might be unstoppable. But the fact that other teams are defending those plays better means that everybody else is going, oh, wow, it's way harder to sneak than it used to be. let's try and do a pitch play or let's try and do a trick. But anyway, everyone else is like completely crapping themselves when it comes to these short plays that used to be pretty easy to convert and now are no longer.
Yeah, I mean, I like this because you're in again, I like the QB sneak formation. I like it as a changeup. The only thing I would do is read it out, right? I would get into this formation and have 3 options, and always go where the weakest one was. Trevor Lawrence had a QB sneak where he just used his reach, just reaching over the goal line earlier on in this game as well, which was a great play. But yeah, I don't mind it as a change of pace off the QB sneak as long as you have the right look. That's the key. But again, just to go back to Lawrence here, hit Calvin Ridley on a deep crosser, hit him in the hands on a deep ball in the end zone. This was an explosive Jags passing attack. Even though it didn't feel like a 24-21 game because, again, the Texans put up a ton of yards and the Jags put up a ton of yards. There weren't a ton of actual scores. It felt like a 40-37 type of game. But I thought this was a great game from Lawrence. Again, second straight week, hitting big-time throws and creating big plays here. Texans still had a chance to win it at the end. A couple opportunities to win it. And Jags defense held, man.
They did. Also, just to prove that we are not just PFF Bobby sycophants over here, didn't love the play call when they had 4th and 1, right? Down 10, not even 4th and 1, 4th and nothing, 4th and half a yard. Back to this, like, hey, are we overthinking 3rd and 4th and short? 4th and half a yard, right? Instead of sneaking or just piling forward and trying to pick up half a yard, they took a shot.
They did.
And I've said this before. I do not love deep shots on these incredible short plays because even if you get the right look, it's not a high percentage play. So this ball lands at the 20-yard line. How far is that? 20. Okay, so it's like a 35-yard. It's like a 40-yard in the air, 30-something yard pass, right, to a tight end. He is open. He's got a step on the DB or the defender, but 35 yards dropping it into a bucket is not a high percentage play when you need, it's all or nothing. You need this 4th down pickup. So what is more likely to happen, right, for you to pick up half a yard on a sneak, which as far as I'm aware is like a 70+% play in the NFL, even this year, or completing this 35-yard pass to a tight end in pretty tight coverage down the field.
I think it's
the sneak.
It looks to me, get an indie concept up top. It looks like they just had zone beaters and the Jags went press man across the board. When you're playing against press man, you're hoping you don't just have ISO routes where it's just, hey, go beat the guy one-on-one. You're hoping you have crossers and switch releases and all these things, a mesh concept, something that's going to screw up the defense and just create one open receiver. And the Texans have 0 open receivers here.
Right.
So part of it's just the play. Like the play call didn't necessarily have. There was no man concept beaters in there, and Jags went man. So I'm assuming they may have gone against tendency. But the Texans also went.
But just across
basically
the board.
4 wide, moved the tight end. It was basically 4 wide with a running back not even in position to take the handoff.
Right.
With that wide split.
Just across the board. Forget the specific pass attempt that they made. I just why go shotgun, spread it out on 4th and a half yard instead of just taking the half yard? You need this play. Any kind of pass attempt is a less likely thing to come off than just plowing forward to pick up half a yard.
I think spread the. I got to do more research on that. The shotgun goal line run from the 1 was more effective than under center as of last year. I see other people tweeting about EPA
and
on
people
those plays.
hate that.
I know people detest that,
right.
But as of last year, the shotgun on the 1-yard line, handoffs to running backs, I was very specific with all of this, were more effective than under center handoffs to running backs for like a multiple year period. I also saw something recently that said with 1 yard to go, EPA is higher under center versus in the shotgun. So I think where you are in the field matters. But people hate the shotgun on, 3rd and 4th and short. But
right.
It's not that different from under center. We'll have to look back.
The only other thing to mention in this game is the officiating in this game was horrendous. Not necessarily in one direction. It was just incompetent start to finish. Like, this had some of the worst calls I've seen on a consistent basis.
Texans fans were booing loudly. So the Texans, I believe, were getting screwed early on. There was a pass interference in the end zone early.
There were multiple pass interferences, I think, on the same drive.
Well, this was, I think, early on the Texans were getting screwed. Then Trevor Lawrence throws an interception only because of pass interference or a defensive hold, right? He's trying to throw a slant. The receiver just gets hooked, isn't where he's supposed to be, and the ball goes past where the receiver was supposed to be to Derek Stingley, who does a nice job catching it. After that play, Tavier Thomas for the Texans got penalized like 3 times on one drive.
Right.
And those were all like a little arm bar. I mean, it was frustrating to watch because you're trying to, I don't know if it's human nature or if it's legit a call in like, hey man, we literally cost the Jaguars a possession. The next arm bar is going to be a pass interference. I don't know if this is conscious or not, or if it's just human nature.
It did seem like they went hard at the makeup calls in this game.
They went
and then
really
spent
hard.
the entire game making up from the last makeup call and just kept lurching back and forth between terrible calls.
It was bad. It was bad both ways.
Yes.
The chat suggesting that we should pick on Bobby since, he hasn't been on the show.
Go the other way. Lean into
Yeah.
We're definitely not
really
in.
turned
We're
heel.
not in the pocket of Bobby Slowick.
Bobby's first loss since breakfast. Is that right?
The breakfast with us as opposed to just breakfast.
With us. Yeah.
Right.
He's a normal breakfast eater, I believe. All right, man. Jags moved to 8-3. A few other teams at 8-3 in the AFC. So battle for that number 1 seed or general seeding there. Texans fall to 6-5, but still very much in the playoff picture.